Thank you. I now call to order the regular meeting of the MWPA Board of Directors for February 15, 2024. I did want to mention that the Larkspur liaison is no longer Gabe Polson. It's now Catherine Way, who unfortunately is not here yet. Martina, could you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Starting with Bolinas Fire District, do we have Claire Molesworth? For Mill Valley, do we have Stephen Burke? For the city of San Rafael, do we have Director Kurtz?
Here.
For the city of Larkspur, do we have Director Catherine Way? For the county of Marin, do we have Director Dennis Rodoni? For Inverness, do we have Director Catherine Donahue? For Kenfield, do we have Director Barry Evergettis? For Marinwood, do we have Director Bill Shea?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. For Muir Beach, do we have Director Catherine Murray? For Novato Fire District, do we have Director Bruce Goins?
Here.
For Sleepy Hollow Fire, do we have Director Tom Finn?
Here.
For Southern Marin Fire, do we have Director Catherine Hilliard?
Here.
For Stinson Beach Fire, do we have Director Mark White?
Here.
For the town of Corte Madera, do we have Director Fred Casisa?
Here.
For the town of Fairfax, do we have Director Barbara Kohler?
Yes.
I'd like to inform the board that for the town of San Anselmo, Director Alexis Feynman will be joining us shortly. And for the town of Ross, do we have President Julie McMillan?
Yes, here. Thank you. Thank you, Martina. Number 3, agenda adjustments. Do board members or staff have any adjustments to the agenda? Seeing none, I did want to just mention that there were 3 or 4 amended agendas that came out in the last couple of days. And in the future, we will try our best only to have one amended agenda per meeting. We will wait and consolidate all the additions or changes. So you'll only get one instead of 3 or 4. Open time for public expression. The public is welcome to address the Board of Directors at this time on matters not on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of the board. Please be advised that pursuant to the Government Code Section 54954.2, the board is not permitted to discuss or take action on any matter not on the agenda. Comments may be no longer than 3 minutes and should be respectful to the community. Please silence your cell phones during the meeting and mute your microphone when you are not reporting out. Martina, is there any public expression?
For members of the public joining us remotely, please raise your hand in the reactions if you would like to deliver a comment at this time. And for those of you joining us by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute and unmute yourself. And I see no hands at this time.
Thank you, Martina. Number 5, Executive Officers Report. Executive Officer Mark Brown will provide the staff report on this item. Mark?
Yeah, and I'm just making sure I
Are
didn't
you
fall.
doing your video?
No. I'm making sure that I'm not falling asleep. No, I'm making sure that my share screen is working properly, and all of a sudden it's not. But that's all right. We'll make it work. It may be to my benefit because, anyway. As you can see, and as you all know, today is Black History Month. And it's a chance to shine a spotlight on people who've had a lasting impacts on our culture. The national theme for 2024 being African-American history and the arts. Black and African-American art is infused with African, Caribbean, and the Black American lived experiences. In the field of visual and performing arts, literature, fashion, folklore, language, film, music, architecture, culinary, and other forms of cultural expression, African-American artists have used art to preserve history and community memory as well as for empowerment. I want to thank Martina for helping me find this awesome image and the words that I shared with you today. An important day or important month. So I think many of you have been seeing the great PR that we've been getting. We had a great editorial in the IJ lauding the work that we're doing with the San Rafael, San Anselmo fuel reduction zone. They appropriately pointed out that there have been some concerns raised, but they also pointed out the environmental groups that are in support of our project and saying that those current concerns really should not be something to worry about. And then KPIX gave me a call on Sunday, and you can say that they jinxed the Super Bowl. But they said they wanted a non-Super Bowl story. And then after a moment said, just in case the Niners lose. And so John Ramos agreed or said, I'll meet you anywhere. So he came up to Santa Rosa, and I found 5 trees that looked very much like the project in San Anselmo. He interviewed me there. And then he went to San Rafael and did the rest of it. And if I get my share screen working properly, I'll show that video. The next item is I reported out a few months ago that we had a working group that consisted of Matthew Heimel, Dan Eilerman, Jason Weber, Dan Schwartz, myself, and Megan looking at possible edits to the Joint Powers Agreement. Part of it is due to Mill Valley's annexation in the Southern Marin Fire District. Other parts are looking at aspects of the language that we've kind of grown away from. Nothing is dramatic about the changes that we are proposing. So I'm asking the president of the board to create an ad hoc subcommittee to work with staff to either reject the suggestions that we're making, amend them, add to any of them. Then we would bring to the board, is this JPA language that you are comfortable with? And then that sets off a series of visiting each and every one of our boards and councils, whether it is in person or on consent is up to each jurisdiction. And we'll also set up a meeting with the Marin Managers Association before we start going on that round so that they're well informed in the process and they can work with us on how they want to steer that through their approval process. You noticed also, I'm sure, in our consent item calendar, I just wanted to touch on it, is that we are going out for RFP for environmental services. Panorama has been a phenomenal partner. It was a 2-year contract when we had the language in there to extend for a 3rd year. That 3rd year is expiring in May, so it is time for us to go out to RFP. Our expectation is that whoever the chosen vendor is next will have the same excellent relationship that we have now, but we have to go through the process of putting out the RFP and following our due diligence. And we will follow the process as far as approval that we've been following for our GIS consultant and for our master services agreement. Staff will do the interview, staff will do the ratings, and then we'll come to the board with a recommendation. We've been working with NBS, who's our tax levy company, to update our low-income senior tax exemption process. One of the requests that two requests that we've received from the public is, can you make the form completely online? Because it was a form that you had to print and send. And can we start getting notifications when we need to renew it? Because it does have to be renewed every year. So when we launch this year, you can either fill out online or you can download and print the form, fill it out, and send it in just like old. And we're creating the database of people who have applied so that in future years, they'll get an email or mail, their choice, to let them know when it's time. Now, I've been asked to share the KPIX video and share an evacuation video or a snippet from the evacuation video that we've been working on. But here's where I'm going to have to stop my screen share and turn on my volume on my computer so I can share the sound online. Maybe. I might get saved by the bell and not have to. It worked earlier, I promise.
Could you send around the links later? Great. Is that all you have?
Can you do the other one?
You can't do any.
I can't do the sound period.
Um,
I will send links and you guys won't have to look at my face on the screen. That's all I have. Any questions?
any questions? Bruce?
That was with Doug McConnell? No, that was your interview?
Yeah, that was going to be the KPX one is the interview with John Ramos. And then we had a little short snippet of an example of what our evacuation video is going to look like.
Thanks.
Bruce?
Hi, Mark. I did see the KPIX feature. I was sitting with a glass of wine with my wife and all of a sudden, oh, it's Mark. And it was really stupendously done. Just the messaging was clear, the support for the work that we're doing was clear. And I just want to compliment you and, the relationships that you're building with the media. And we did have some experience historically in the first year figuring out what it was we need to do. And it seems like you're accomplishing that. So I want to compliment you. Secondly, the topic of JPA edits, this intrigues me. And I understand we're going to put a subcommittee together. And is there a specific issue that you're addressing? Is it just the Mill Valley situation, or can just
Yeah. So
what's the topic, please?
part of it still talked about language. Part of the language talked about if the measure passed. Well, the measure passed. So we're updating language so that it's current. We had no offboarding language in there. So we've created offboarding language, and we've amended the onboarding language should other members or any agencies within Marin want to join. There is an abatement clause for the DSpace monies that we simply aren't using the member agencies. It's little house cleaning edits like that. It's not a substantive change at all.
Okay, and then just a comment, really a question, if you will. Earlier this week, an excellent field tour, and you did an amazing job. And there were over 60 people attended. One of the topics that came up during that field tour was the fact that we are formulating our approach towards setting up a monitoring system to monitor the effectiveness of the work that we're doing, and the topic of environmentally sound, whatever the wording is in our JPA language, that eventually we're going to have to interpret that. To what extent does our JPA allow us to expend funds on monitoring? And we may need to look at that language. So I would just suggest that the JPA subcommittee understand that there are some incoming issues that first of all, I think we're going to need to get Megan to do some interpretation on what the language means and how it matches up to the monitoring. And then secondly, we may need to take a look at the language and decide if it's adequate, if it's getting what we need to prove that we're doing environmentally sound work.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Anybody else? I'm just wondering about the timing on the JPA's board's ad hoc subcommittee, and then when you all are going to be appearing in front of various town councils.
So we're ready for the ad hoc now.
Okay.
And it will depend on the time frame. I wouldn't imagine it would take more than 1 or 2 meetings with the ad hoc. And then I'll ask for agenda time with the Marin managers. So we're February now. I wouldn't be surprised if we start the road tour in Mayish.
Great. Thank you. Catherine?
Remind to repeat who's on it.
We're,
It hasn't been formed
we're
yet.
still
I'm
forming
asking.
it. Yep. Yep. Public comment, Martina.
I see no hands for comment at this time.
Great. Bringing it back to the board for any further discussion? Anybody? Nope. Okay, number 6, consent calendar. The opportunity for public comment on the consent calendar items will occur prior to the board's discussion of the consent calendar. The board may approve the entire consent calendar with one action. In the alternative, items on the consent calendar may be removed by any board or staff member for separate discussion and vote. Martina, is there any public comment on the consent calendar?
There are no hands at this time.
Mark?
And if I can just add, that was some of the agenda changes had to do with the consent, and we added insurance language. Thank you, Barbara, for identifying that for the MOU with Marin County Fire Department for TAM crew and Fire Foundry. And we also adjusted the minutes to accurately reflect the votes that went on.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. Do any board members wish to pull an item from the consent calendar? Seeing none, could we please have a motion to approve items A through D on the consent calendar?
I'll move those with the amendments to A and D. And thanks staff for Sorry, I drove you crazy.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Great, thank you. Staff reports. A, February MWPA Finance Report. Treasurer Alyssa Schiffman will provide the board with a staff report for this item. There she is. Hi, Alyssa, welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, directors. I just have two things to add to my written report. One, to clarify that this budget presented here is the one that was approved by the board last month. And so that's why you're seeing less red on the right in the percent of budget. And I do also put notes there to help you understand why something might be red. And then we did just get the second quarter interest disbursement from the county today. And so it's looking like we're on track for interest to total 400,000 by the end of the year. So very over budget, the 50,000 that we budgeted. So that's good news. And with that, I can take any questions.
Any questions? Public comment, Martina?
And there do not appear to be any hands at this time.
Great. Bring it back to the board for any discussion. Seeing none, we will go to item B, work plan implementation update. Planning and Program Manager Ann Krelock will provide the board with a staff report on this item.
Great, thank you. So speaking of field trips, we were finally able to hold this field trip at the San Rafael San Anselmo Fuel Reduction Zone project area, really focusing on the first 10 acres of area that we're going to be implementing. The first time around, we were not able to go because it was stormy and rainy and windy, and we did not want all those people standing underneath eucalyptus trees in the wind. So we postponed. Bruce, I'm going to have to update my number there. If you saw over 60 people attending, it was really well attended. And it really speaks to the interest, the public interest in this project, the curiosity. A lot of really good questions were asked. And I think events like this really help build trust and understanding of what we're doing and why. And so we plan on hosting many more trips to not only this project, but other projects. And I think one of the next steps with this project will be really getting out into the neighborhoods and talking to the neighbors and making sure those who are, living next door to this project area really understand what's going on. So eventually when there are trucks in the neighborhood, they know why and they know what time of day the trucks will be there and know the nitty-gritty of this project. So we'll be working on that. Speaking of that type of work in the contracting, we are able to streamline the contracting for the first 10 acres of this project because of the master services agreements that you all approved last month. So thank you for that. We were able to help out San Rafael Fire through that process. And you saw a task order for this project on consent today. And that really helps speed things up. So San Rafael Fire and our other project partners will be able to get busy on that pilot project area before the end of the fiscal year, we think. We also have other task orders in progress. So certainly there was a demand out there. And so we do have, I believe, 4 task orders in process right now. So that's exciting. Let's see, we still have our list of pre-qualified contractors that we completed in 2023. So there are other contractors available to do work for the MWPA and member agencies. So I just want to throw that out there for any contractors listening right now. So other events coming up, we hold now an annual, this will be our second annual field refresher course. And so this is for member agencies or other partners who would like to refresh their knowledge on plants in the project areas, birds, nesting birds. We're also adding a geologist to the curriculum this time around to talk about erosion and slope stability and really take a look at what we should be looking for out in the field. We'll also be talking about non-native plant invasions and kind of protocols around how to report and control non-native plants invading our wildlands. We'll also talk about environmental regulations and the key pieces of information that folks need to know if they're managing projects out in the field. We're also doing a lot of other outreach. On the 27th of January, Chief Weber and I spoke to the Planning and Conservation League. We really talked about evacuation related work, but also an introduction to what the MWPA is. It was a great opportunity to talk to a lot of people. Got to speak to Secretary Wade Crowfoot as well and kind of introduce the MWPA to him for a second time. We also spoke with him last year. Association of Environmental Professionals, a big thank you to Kate Anderson with San Rafael Fire, who's going to join me and Panorama in at that event, and we'll be speaking there. And then Chief Tyler of Nevada will be joining me at the International Association of Fire Chiefs meeting in March. I also want to note we have biologists, geologists, and other experts out there. Right now, we are starting some of the project implementation for the season here and there. If you know of project managers who are looking for help out in the field, please let me know. We have folks ready to go out and support our projects. We are busy with the ATC and Operations Committee, really thinking through JPA-wide projects, especially right now, but also zone-specific projects. We just hosted a February meetings for both committees. Excuse me. And in March, we'll have another full agenda. We'll be talking mostly about JPA-wide proposals in March. And then April, we'll be focusing more on zone-specific proposals. We still think that you guys are going to see this draft work plan and budget in May, on May 16th. So keep an eye out for that. I want to note that one of the things the Operations Committee does each year is really dig into the overall kind of strategic guidance for development of the work plan. The Operations Committee really wanted to dig into kind of our generalized language and make some edits. So this slide includes updated language around an overall approach to work plan development for this fiscal year. Much of it is generally the same, but with some additions, some references to technical, modeling and different types of approaches to vegetation management, et cetera. I'm happy to send this out. We could post it online if we need to, but it's also been included in the ATC and Operations Committee meetings. It includes continuing the house out approach, which is a core strategy that we follow for everything we do. We modified some of the grant language to reflect the need for more direct assistance to residents. So that's the second bullet. The third bullet includes kind of addressing splats or strategically placed local or landscape area treatments, and also additional pathways modeling to help with fire behavior and movement on the landscape, and incorporate that into project planning. Expanding the use of prescribed fire is another key component that was added this time around. We think there are opportunities this year to really do more of that. And then also include the public and work on more public education around this topic. We wanted to reflect evacuation planning in these strategic measures as well, because we're doing this, we're prioritizing this, and we hadn't included that in these bullets yet. So that is included as well. We continued our bullet here on working with insurance, IBHS, but added some language around controlling costs for homeowners. And the last bullet here, addressing public education, we wanted to expand on that and included some language around supporting activities that fire agencies and Marin residents can take, such as home hardening and defensible space, particularly Zone 0, as well as some other topics, safe evacuations, and reducing ignitions. And then I'd like to invite Stephen Peters to speak about the Chipper Day program. And so he's going to take the mic.
Anyone hear me? Yeah, great. Good afternoon. For those of you who haven't met me yet, I'm Stephen Peters. I'm Vegetation Management Specialist and the program lead for the Chipper Day program. I want to give you a quick update on the highlights from the 2023 season. The full report is available online if you want to go take a look at that. I'm happy to send out links to everyone. And if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. So the big thing that we changed up in 2023 was how we distributed the crews and the schedule for residents. So in years past, how it would work is one crew of three crew members would be in each of the zones of the MWPA every week. So you'd have one crews all over the county. What that resulted in is each resident was able to have 2 pickups throughout the season, but they were spaced months apart, and that didn't really work for a lot of people. What we decided to do is have all crews help each other and deploy all to one zone each week and then rotate around the zones, resulting in every 5 weeks, residents were able to get a pickup and all the crews could support each other for if they ran into unforeseen complications. That resulted in not 2, not 3 like we had the year before with the bonus chipping we did, but 5 available chipping opportunities for all residents within the JPA. So we think that was a great improvement. Next slide, please. So what was the result of that? Over 4,400 residents were served during the season. It's a 35% increase over 2022. And we increased the amount of material that we removed from residents' homes by about 3,700 cubic yards. Additionally, we partnered with Marin County's Fire Foundry program to do additional pickups and more complicated projects with them. And we really love that partnership. We want to continue that on into this season. And all of that resulted in thousands of kilograms of CO2 taken off of the road by using larger capacity trucks that can remove the need for private citizens to take their smaller personal vehicles to green waste dump sites. Next slide. So looking to 2024, as I said, we want to continue that great partnership with the Fire Foundry. We're going to keep the same schedule. Every 5 weeks, residents will get an opportunity for pickup. We're adding 1 additional round. So now we'll have 6 opportunities this season. And finally, and we're really excited about this, we're going to tighten up the service window. So in the past, you would sign up for the program and you would be told between Monday morning and Friday afternoon, the crews will be there. We're going to cut that in half and you'll either be able to have a pickup in the first half of the week or the second half of the week. So piles will be left out on the street for a lot shorter amount of time. With that, happy to take any questions and thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both. Questions for Stephen or Ann? Catherine?
Did we get this in the packet?
Mm-mm.
Can I, just that first page with all of the accomplishments of the chipper program?
Absolutely happy to send that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Anybody else? It's fantastic improvements and iterations. So congratulations. Public comment on this item, Martina?
In just a moment, it looks like we do have a hand raised for public comment. And sir, you should be able to deliver your comment now at this time.
Public comment. Good afternoon. It's Larry Minikis. And I just want to make a call out to Josh Hampshire. He filmed the entire field trip, and I'm recovering from total knee surgery, so I could not attend. I try to attend every one of these field trips, and it was very informative, and I want to congratulate Ann, Kate, and staff on the field trip. It was really very informative. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Larry. Good luck with your recovery. We look forward to seeing you in person soon.
And if you don't mind, I'd love to mention that we'd like to do more of that, particularly for ADA accessibility and making sure that our field trips are more accessible for those who would like to attend but are unable.
Thank you. Bruce?
And thanks for a great report. I noted that you mentioned the operations approach this coming year. You mentioned strategically placed landscape area treatments and then the pathways analysis. And most of you don't probably dig into the weeds of this, but you should really to understand. And guess we have an expert here, Tammy, in some of your modeling. But my question is, I'm intrigued by this. It's the right thing to do. Are they actually proposing to incorporate some pathways analytical work into this year's work plan on projects in MIBPA, or is it principle that we're going to investigate further? And you know, it could be a pilot, it could be pervasive. It relates to our ingress and egress study also. I mean, it all comes together. But I was just kind of wondering, do you have a better idea of when we might see some of this? And in fact, I think the board should get a little presentation on the pathways analysis and the importance of pathways analysis and what it means to strategic investment. But my question is, it's great stuff. It's kind of late for incorporation into this year's planning, but what's your take on it?
So the board will be receiving a presentation from Scott Farley from Willow Labs, who's really driving this modeling. The ATC and Operations Committee have already received those presentations, so they are already digesting that information and putting it in for the 24-25 work plan. And then you guys will get your presentation next month.
Excellent. Thank you.
I was on the field trip too, and I did want to commend you, Anne, and also Kate. But Ted and Jacob did a fantastic job as well. I asked a question about eucalyptus and why there were trees there, and Jacob just went off, and it sounded like he was defending his doctorate. It was really, really incredible. No notes, nothing. It was really, really well done. I also wanted to point out to the board, if you haven't looked in your packet carefully, on pages 61 through 64, there's a detailed update item by item of the progress that MWPA has been making. It might be fun to share it with your jurisdictions. All right. Any more comments on this item? Moving on to number 8, action items. A, DSA Alliance requests for MWPA to employ 2 senior wildfire mitigation specialists. Mark.
Yes, and I'll give a little background first. As you all know, when the JPA was language was written, and we were negotiating and working through the process, it was envisioned that most of the agencies actually would ask the MWPA to employ all of the inspection staff. And then the realization was that some of the member agencies have a much closer, have great relationship with their communities, and perhaps we should allow agencies to opt out and do their own inspections, and then that money would be a pass-through. Then reality set in when MWPA was officially born on April 1st of 2020, and we needed to start doing inspections, and it was impossible for the MWPA to employ inspectors at that time. So the opt-out became the rule rather than the exception. Then we knew that based on the way the language was written, that the MWPA should be prepared for member agencies to come to us and say, we would like you to employ the inspectors. So back in February 2022, we presented position descriptions for a senior wildfire mitigation specialist, and then for wildfire mitigation specialists, we just created the position descriptions, but did not do a salary survey or any comparisons because there was no need to hire them at that time. We just wanted to be ready should that request came. Then we also had the Defensible Space Alliance, which is the Central Zone, Southern Zone, and West Marin, with pockets of CSAs within the San Rafael Zone, CSA 19 and CSA 13. Yeah, CSA 13, CSA 19. And have a blended employment. Many of the inspectors are working for Marin County Fire. The leadership worked for Ross Valley Fire, and some of the other member agencies contributed leadership or inspectors to the program. Due to some of the constraints within the agencies that were employing the leadership, it was getting hard to get those positions into a compensation range that would maintain consistency and maintain the highest level of candidates. The program also became much more complicated, and they identified the need for 2 people to be in the leadership roles. So they requested in December that rather than Ross Valley Fire employing the lead, they asked the MWPA to step up and employ what we're calling the senior wildfire mitigation specialists, and to have them be 2 of them. We brought this to the executive committee in January for review and guidance and see if they felt it was a good idea. It was. We completed the compensation comparison, which you have in your packet. We also worked on a memorandum of understanding between us and the 5 member agencies that would be part of this. So lines of authority, lines of supervision, process would be very, very clear. In the staff report, you also see an organization chart, and you'll see, and it's I broke it out by goals so that we can follow our strategic planning. Goal 1 is Ann and the planning program manager there. You'll see that I listed the grant program. There's a box, but that's not a person. We're with the grant specialist. That's just designating the program. The grant specialist is through that. And since there's no person in that box, that means that person reports to me, because there has to be someone, right? And then within the D space, that's goal 5, you see the 2 senior WIMs below that. And again, they'll report to me. Ann's got enough on her plate to, with goal 1 and $10 million worth of projects. So I'll be assuming the supervision, and the D Space Alliance has an advisory committee that will have one member that works with me as we work through all of the daily challenges of the inspection program. And then for the funding, it'll come from core projects that come from the central, south, and west, prorated to the level of effort. And that's how those positions will be funded. And we're at the NWPA staff are really excited about this. We think it's going to create a stronger connection between our veg management practices and our D-space practices, with grants kind of in the middle. And so we see a lot of synergy that's going to come out through this relationship. I think with this, I'll take any questions.
Questions, board members? Bruce?
Yeah, Mark, it's a great package. I understand the origins of this. My question is, all D-Space employees are not permanent. I know that Novato has year-round D-Space inspectors, and perhaps some other members have D-Space inspectors that are permanent, but can you please address the kind of the workforce, the number of the seasonality or permanence of the positions, and I mean, we're justifying full-time positions. I'm just kind of asking how that's going to work, and how many full-time positions they'll be supervising throughout the year, or if it's going to be kind of a semi-season. Anyway, I think you know what I'm asking.
Yeah, I do.
Thank you.
So yes, the 2 senior WIMs will be full-time equivalents for the MWPA. They'll be year-round. The vast majority of the staff that's within the D-Space Alliance are seasonal staff. However, we during the inspection season, they're full staff of about 23 to 25 inspectors. And then during the off season, it drops down to at times 0, but they start bringing people in earlier, and because with county fire, they have to have 3 months of separation, or for any extra higher position like that, you have to have 3 months of separation. So they balance that where they have peaks and valleys of the staffing.
Anybody else? Public comment, Martina?
There are no hands for comment at this time.
Great. Let's bring it back to the board. Any further discussion, thoughts?
Thank you. And one additional item, we are locked and loaded, ready to go with the recruitment starting Monday.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 8B, First Amendment to the contract with Sonoma Technology.
Is there an action item?
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Thank you, Rachel. So we do need a motion on this item.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Great. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Rachel. Item 8B, First Amendment to the contract with Sonoma Technology for the evacuation ingress egress risk assessment. Mark.
I'll tee it up and then pass it off to Tammy. And if I walk on too much of Tammy's presentation, she can give me a stare and I'll stop talking. But as you know, when the evacuation ingress egress risk assessment and the planning tool actually started before the process to create that tool started before the MWPA was actually formed. And we thought we were going to need to build an evacuation management tool into that tool. But then Zonehaven came about and we were presented with a tool that would meet exactly the needs that we were mapping out. So we were able to take that part out. As we were working with Tammy and her team to create the final project that was approved by the board, we thought we were going to want to have a dynamic software tool. But we knew that that was going to be a huge lift. So we actually put a pause at the end of task 4 before we went into task 5. And that's where we're at now. Well, now there is a tool that can actually create that dynamic aspect that we were looking for. And so I'll hand it off to Tammy to talk about tasks 5 and 6.
All right. Oh, gosh. Wow. They're working today. Thanks for having me. And before I start, I just wanted to introduce my colleague, Brian Penfold. He did a ton of work on the evacuation study. He set up our GeoHub site. He's sort of our GIS expert guru. So this is Brian. And he actually is a longtime resident of Sonoma County, but he recently, I guess like 3 years ago, moved to North Carolina. So I miss him in the office, but he's here with us today. So yeah, thanks, Mark, for kicking it off. So as Mark was explaining, you've seen this graph diagram probably more times than you care to visualize it now. But yeah, so we completed the current conditions risk assessment for the evacuation study. We paused and sort of went back to the drawing board and thought, how can we really best serve the technical advisory team, the member agencies? And so we rescoped task 5 and 6, and basically task 5, the plan now is to provide technical consulting support to really start to look at, we have the current conditions assessment, and as projects are completed, we want to really look at, okay, how effective are those projects? What is that doing to reduce flame length, rates of spread on the landscape, and other metrics? And so really, we're just going to be assisting with the sort of before and after risk reduction. And so that's really the gist of the first part of task 5. And I'll be working with Charlotte and Mark and others to narrow in on, what are those metrics that are really important in terms of communicating to the public the effectiveness of all of these different programs. And so the second part of task 5 really is to provide support to the Green Info Network, which is the new MWPA GIS contractor. And Brian will actually be doing the heavy lift on this, but really working with them to make sure that we're transferring data, we're keeping track of different versions of the data as we update, the fuel model data, for example. We need to make sure that we're tracking the latest data sets and then also coordinating with the other MWPA contractors, Willow Labs, for example. We're sharing data with them so that we make sure that we're not, being redundant in our work. And then task 6, as Mark was mentioning, interestingly, as we were working on the evacuation study, a new company, Ladris, sort of emerged, and they have this artificial intelligence driven evacuation modeling platform. And it's quite impressive. If you've not seen a demo of it, I encourage that. But basically you can run different scenarios. The platform can be used both in real time, but also in a planning for planning context. So if we want to look at, okay, there's a project along X evacuation route, and we're going to be reducing fuels within 100 feet from the roadway. What does that look like in terms of the time it takes for people to come out, the flame lengths along the roadside? And so we'll really be able to look at, different sort of what if scenarios. And so we're going to be partnering with Ladris and testing out the software in a planning situation for San Rafael. And we'll set up a technical advisory team to help, sort of lead and guide that work. We'll also be working with the Office of Emergency Management and, getting law enforcement and others on board. And Mark might want to speak more to that, but yeah, so that's the plan moving forward, and happy to take any questions.
If I could expand a little bit on the Ladder's part, and it's a little bit confusing because we just approved a Ladder's agreement with the evacuation management in last month's meeting. There's two very distinct things that the Ladder's tool can do, and so the subscription that we have that we approved last month is specifically for artificial intelligence modeling of evacuations. Whereas what we're talking about with this tool is actually taking the work that we do and dynamically adjusting the fire behavior that we'll have. So it's not just the traffic, it's the fire behavior. It's a communications network. So it's a more robust suite of analysis.
And if I may, I'll add one more thing. That is that following the delivery of the current condition risk assessment that Sonoma Technology performed, we've already received requests from our member agencies to, to update essentially the risk assessment with the projects that they are in the process of implementing. So they're eager to have up-to-date data so that they can follow up, maintain, create programs, design education and outreach where risk cannot be mitigated. So it's really crucial that we keep the tool up to date to that extent.
Questions from the board? Yes, Barbara.
Just a question. So I know that we're not changing the fiscal amount, and it's interesting that the amount comes out exactly the same as if you were creating software. But I'm wondering if it's possible I mean, I see the breakdown of the San Rafael pilot, but I think it would be a great idea if there was some way to get at least another zone, a sample in another zone. San Rafael is kind of the very big example. And then I think it would be a good idea to do something in one of the other zones for a smaller evacuation that might have more of the one way in, one way out sort of situation. So I'm just wondering if there's something you guys could take back to the drawing board about the possibility of not short circuiting what you're doing in San Rafael, because that's important, but I think it would be important for us to show another example, like I said, in one of the smaller cities in one of the other zones that really has this very convoluted way of getting in and out. And I think on one level, I don't think it would be that expensive because you're not dealing with as many people as you are in San Rafael. So I think it'd be nice to have a comparison. And hopefully in the future, as this works out, we could take this to all of them. But I'd like to see us maybe, if it's possible, to squeeze in under this amount of money, trying to do a smaller one. And maybe it's more a question for Mark. If
Yeah, I'd
that's
be
something
happy
you
to
could look
address
at.
that. Totally the intent, if the beta goes well or the test goes well, it's good. The intent is to apply it through all of the jurisdictions that we have. We actually put a lot of thought in where we're going to do the beta test. And what we wanted to do was use one of the 5 test cases that we did for the evac ingress egress risk assessment. So that was Tam Valley, Fairfax, San Rafael, Novato, and Inverness area. And then we wanted to find where there was a robust project going on. And so and an agency that had staff bandwidth to be able to work with Tammy and her team, because as we work through this pilot project, it's going to take a lot of interaction back and forth between Tammy and the staff to refine the process. But definitely we can connect with Tammy and see if we can get into one of the areas that has some of the challenges that you're talking about.
Thank you. And I apologize for not bringing it up sooner, but as Tammy was talking, I was thinking it would be a really nice mix. So thank you for doing what you can. And if it doesn't work out, I think this is a great change. So thank you, guys.
Tom?
At what point and to what extent will the raw data and more importantly, the rankings be in the public domain, possibly accessible to insurance companies?
The board approved to create a viewer of the public information at the macro scale, and it's actually live on the website now.
Any other questions from the board? Bruce?
I'm just trying to connect some dots here. And I did ask, Anne, thank you for your presentation and the operations intent to incorporate pathways modeling and splats into project location and development. I'm just curious, and I know that we already done the analysis, Mark, the 2 different wildfire scenarios under certain conditions that help generate the ratings we currently have. Do you see any relationship between, I mean, this concept of the pathways modeling is so critical and strategic. Do you see any intersection between pathways modeling and this project in the future? And if so, how and when?
Yeah, so if it's okay, I'll respond. So yes, it is part of this project in the sense that we are now in the process of converging the different initiatives. It's going to be Willow Lab that takes this on, that takes on the pathway modeling. I think what you're referring to is it going to sit on the same platform available for the agencies to consult as the work that Sonoma Tech has performed? And the answer is yes. So we just need to get the analysis going from Willow Labs and then eventually converge the platform so that the agencies and the public, for that matter, has a full picture of everything related to risk and risk interventions. So pathways, splats, fuel breaks, existing, on parcel risk and so on. Everything needs to converge in one spot, right? So the evacuation risk assessment is, again, it's the fuel risk, the traffic risk, and the communication risk. So we need to dig deeper into the fuel risk to include this pathways and splats, and then update the platform with the other two to have that full picture. So working on it, very much working on it.
I just think this is very exciting, and I commend you and team in bringing this all together. So thank you. I'm really excited about incorporating it. This is another layer, another source of information to help us be very strategic on, let's go here and there, not here. So anyway, I'm really excited about this, and so thanks. The extent that you can incorporate it and keep us posted, I think would be great. Thank you.
And isn't it true that you all are really blazing the trail? There's no precedent for doing this.
Yeah, you'll hear a lot more about this in March. We have a full presentation for you on risk modeling and on providing I think MWP is going to adopt a strategic role in benchmarking all of the approaches to risk modeling and comparing models and make sure that we adopt the best in class. So more to come at the March meeting, and I'll promise you'll have a full picture after that presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Charlotte. Any other questions?
Well, if I could add into something, and this might be a surprise to someone that's in the audience, but I see that Anthony Masuko from CAL FIRE is in our audience, and we at Marin Wildfire have gotten used to patting ourselves on the backs and saying what we're doing is revolutionary and first of its kind. But maybe if Anthony, you were willing to raise your hand and offer your perspective of where Marin Wildfire is to our board. Come on, Anthony, raise your hand. There you go. Thank you.
Way to put me on the spot there, Chief.
Anytime, buddy.
I've had the pleasure of just listening in and receiving a bunch of or a couple different presentations on Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, and just very, very impressed with how organized and how advanced you all have been. And it's definitely something that we take to our shop and try to implement a lot of the things that you all are doing. So just very, very impressed with all of you and everything that you're doing, and just how organized and innovative you are. And I'm taking notes here just to make myself sound impressed when I bring it to my team. So thanks for the opportunity to say a couple words, and I appreciate it. Like being a fly on the wall.
Thank you for those great comments. We really appreciate that. Public comment, anybody else from the public wishing to speak on this?
There are no additional hands at this time.
Great. Seeing no more comments, any further board discussion, or we need a motion, please? Bruce.
Motion to approve the amended contract.
Second. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Wonderful. Thank you both so much for being here. Number 9, committee reports. February Fire Safe Marin report. Rich Shortall, are you there? There you are. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We're really moving along today. It's usually 5 o'clock before I come on, so this is great. And-
Now, come on.
No, no, that's good. That's really positive. But I don't want to take a lot of your time. We'll respect the good pace of the meeting today. And just say the report, again, is, I think, somewhat self-explanatory. I do want to say, as you can tell, we put a lot of work into these monthly reports. And if you notice over time, I believe that they're more comprehensive and more sharing of data and more transparent. So I hope that is helpful to all of you. And obviously, I encourage you to follow up with any questions from us. And then just want to say one other thing. I'm not sure that the reports always capture how closely we work with the staff at the MWPA, whether we're out there making videos with Mark and driving around filming things for an evacuation video, or we're helping with the social media for MWPA, which we'll be doing more and more of that going forward, meeting to help promote the home evaluation ports, whatnot. But we are all on the same page, sort of tied at the hip, and we just love working with the team and just very proud of everything that we're all collectively doing. So with that, I'd be glad to take any questions.
Questions, board? Rich, could you just let everyone know when Ember Stomp will be this year?
It will be Saturday, September 7th.
Thank you.
The planning has already started for it.
Do you want to explain why it's not in May?
Yeah, so we've actually spoken with a lot of people about this to get their opinion about it. And pretty much almost 100% of everybody felt that the difficulty was May. And I think last year was a really good example of, you're coming out of a wet winter. It's still sort of the end of rainy season. And there haven't been the type of events that spark people's interest in wildfire the way happens later on in the year. And we can tell this by visits to the website, questions that come into us day to day. And we felt if we moved it to September, we're actually capturing a time when there's much more interest. We certainly don't wish there to be wildfires, but the reality is we're well into fire season at that point. The chances are some things have happened and people are paying much more attention. So we really think that it will increase attendance, particularly bringing in people who are not necessarily sort of what I call the true believers. We really want Ember Stomp, a big part of it is to try to greatly broaden the audience. So we're not capturing those people who are necessarily following us in newsletters, social medias, or all the other type of outreach we're doing. So that's our strategy behind it. And I talked with several of the fire chiefs and a lot of other people, Firewise and whatnot, and everybody thinks it's a good idea.
Great, thank you for that. Any questions, board? Oh, sorry, Bruce.
Yep. Rich, just it's an amazing report. The work you guys are doing is just astounding. The thing that I find myself thinking about is we're coming into our 5th year now, fairly soon, and I and a lot of people think about reauthorization from the taxpayers and the challenges associated with that. But I kind of wonder. The question really is how do we know that the citizens understand what's being done, where funds are coming from, the importance of it, and the visibility of Measure C as the enabling measure that's allowing for all this work to be done. Do you have any thoughts on that? How we're doing on that, and if we need to do additional work as we come into year 5 and 6, as we really start to approach the need to really work on renewal of the JPA?
That's a really good question. And the best way to answer it is, as you know, one of the programs we started was the Ambassador Program, where we're out there everywhere talking to people. And these are not people coming to a wildfire prevention festival. These are people at the county fair, or they happen to be at a local event or a food pantry or whatever. And so these are engagements where we're actually talking back and forth to people. One of the people are definitely aware of Measure C, and people are definitely aware that a lot of work is being done. One thing, and I've talked with Mark about this, and I think it's kind of changing. One thing that hurts MWPA a little bit is the name is not catchy. If you say Fire Safe Marin, oh, that's kind of like obvious, right? Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority is kind of a little bit of a handful. And once you talk about, oh yeah, those guys, that's great. Yeah, Measure C, that's great. Love what they're doing and whatnot. So I think the more the name kind of focuses a little bit more as Marin Wildfire, just kind of keeping it shorter, just makes it a little bit easier to roll off the tongue of the public. But the public is very aware that there's a lot of work going on in Marin. And the biggest success program out there by far, people just love the chipper program. Everybody tells us that. And almost everything about the home evaluation program is very positive. The nitpickiness is, well, they came and I thought that was really a good bush and it wasn't a great bush. And, you know, grandpa planted it and I hate to have to get rid of it or whatever. But it is really appreciated. And it's a little bit harder on the bigger, for people to grasp what's going on some of the shaded fuel breaks and all, because they're a little bit farther away from the public. I think everything you're doing leading those guided tours is just fantastic. And then we should be capturing even more of them on videos and pushing them out through all the different channels that we use to communicate with the public so that people can see all that activity going on too. But it's a high IQ about wildfire preparedness. And I think that there is a real understanding that a ton of work, good work, is being done in Marin, and it is funded by Measure C.
And I mean, I see some of the material here in the report shows Fire Safe Marin. Some of it shows both MWPA and Fire Safe Marin. And you know, to the extent that, and you know this, to the extent that we can make sure that MWPA is present and as present as possible in all the materials, I think it can only be of value as we look towards renewal of Measure C.
We're on the same page about that. I couldn't agree more.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
I
Sorry,
just-
Charlotte.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to say, Rich, Rich is absolutely right. He works very closely, he and his team, with MWPA staff, including myself. And I just want to thank the Fire Safe Marin team for their engagement and their willingness to participate and to support. It's been growing as a collaboration, and I'm just really grateful for that.
And if I can add in, and Julie's been picking up on this, we're as staff trying to say MWPA less and Marin Wildfire more. And so kind of like when you have Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority as the first thing, instead of in parentheses anymore, MWPA, we're putting in parentheses Marin Wildfire. And so, at the beginning of the evacuation video, I didn't say I was the executive officer for the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority. I said I'm executive officer for Marin Wildfire. So it's just trying to kind of create that different branding, something that rolls off the tongue better.
Yeah, and I also want to encourage everyone, if you haven't already, to share the annual report that was in the board packet last month with all the members of your jurisdiction. I'm doing that at my town council meeting tonight. You know, you say that Marin Wildfire has inspected 30,000 homes, and people just don't even believe it because it's so many. So I think the more we can repeat our message, the better off we're going to be when it's time to renew the tax measure. Public comment on this item, Martina?
There are no hands for comment at this time.
Okay, any further discussion? Catherine?
Quick comment, Rich, thank you. Everything is great. I think that events like Ember Stump build on themselves year after year. They get bigger and bigger, but it would really be helpful if we did have a specific time of the year where people could count on it. I understand, you know, and right now, you know, you have all good reasons why to change it, and it could be, yeah, very good reasons. But for example, you know, there's certain bicycle races that take place on Father's Day. I mean, it's what I'm thinking is if it's in a certain month that is dedicated to fire prevention every time, then people will come and it was fantastic last year. So that's just a suggestion. And I think that the program you're also not mentioning here that really brings the public in is the grants program. That is something in my neighborhood that I get more comments back on. I didn't know I could get this back. This is great. And, you know, I know that it's going to have to be limited by the amount of funds we have, but you know, you mentioned that for every dollar we put out in grants, we get $8 back insert from them. That's a big thing. So, yeah, anyway, that's my comment.
Thank you, Catherine. Okay, thank you, Rich. It was a great report, and thank you for all your great work. Moving on to item 9B, Advisory Technical Committee. Anne?
Great. I am going to give the report for both the ATC and ops today, and then I will twist some arms so that folks come and join us in March. But due to various circumstances, neither chair or vice chair of either committee were able to join us today. So the ATC and operations committees have been quite busy. At our February meetings, both ATC and ops had very similar agendas. We had a presentation from Willow Labs talking about modeling for projects, and this board will hear that presentation in March. We also talked about overall process and timelines. For example, for the ATC, we're all going to be entering our JPA-wide draft proposals by March 1st into the work plan portal, and then draft zone-specific projects and proposals by March 15th. So we're moving things along, and then we'll have ad hoc subcommittees that will be created to dive into any issues that come up, any questions or concerns or coordination that needs to happen around those proposals. Let's see, we also, for March, we're going to see presentations on those JPA-wide proposals. And then we're also going to add, you know, as you've heard from one of our vegetation management specialists today, we really like to include them in all of these presentations. They've got a lot of knowledge and expertise. One of our veg management specialists will present to ATC and ops in March and really dig into a white paper that he prepared that includes kind of a summary of available peer-reviewed literature on shaded fuel breaks and efficacy. And we'd like to actually work with Fire Safe Marin to create more messaging and content around what vegetation management is. So we have a vegetation management web page within the Marin Wildfire website. And why not use that to help explain what vegetation management is? What does it look like when a hand crew goes out and does work? Things like that. So we're working with Fire Safe Marin to create some content around that. So we'll talk about that in March as well. That's it for me.
Questions about ATC or ops from the board? Public comment, Martina, on ATC and ops?
We do not have any hands for comment at this time.
Great. Any further discussion on this item by the board? Thank you, Anne. Number 10, information items. We are acknowledging the minutes of the January 24, 2024 Citizens Oversight Committee meeting. Number 11, board members' request regarding future agenda items. Do any board members have any requests for future items? Bruce?
Hi, this is, I'd like to get an update on the status of grant applications that are out, Mark. I know that one TAM has applied for funds from multiple entities. I don't know how that relates to us directly, but do we have any grants pending? And what's our game plan for applying for grants? So the timing is up to you when it's taught, you know, when it's relevant and meaningful. But I just like to get an update because we always say we need more money.
Will do. Well,
Thank you. Okay, at 4:09, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for attending.